Are you planning on being a MD, PhD in Canada in the next coming few years? If so, you might want to rethink what you're going to be doing. This is a response video to a article that I have read on the CBC uh, on their news website, and it's entitled "Cuts to MD PhD Funding Greeted with Horror by Medical Scientists." So I'll have a link in the description below um, on the article so you can read for yourself. But in general, what's going on is the government is going to be cutting a program where they give $1.8 million to students who want to be both a medical doctor and a PhD research scientist so that they become a specialist, both in terms of clinical, so being an actual medical doctor, and then being able to actually do research so that they can then analyze what they see in clinic. Um, so in generally they're called clinical scientists. And we're seeing in Canada, at least, this program which offered enough money to pay their tuition, the students' tuitions, and their living expenses, so that they could have time to go to medical school, become a medical doctor, while at the same time getting a PhD in one of the basic sciences like biology or probably biochemistry, immunology, pathology, etc., so that they can be a clinical scientist. Which, according to this report, uh, is actually only 3 to 4% of all doctors in Canada are these clinical scientists. And according to the report, as well as a committee that was conducted a couple years ago, indicated that we needed more of these clinical scientists and these specialists that can do both clinical work and basic research. So this is, I can see the problem. This is like a growing list here in Canada of cuts to science. First it was muzzling scientists and cutting major scientific projects, like the Twin Lakes studies. One of the reasons they cite for this, for removing this program, which costs $1.8 billion, by the way, they're removing this program due to budgetary constraints. Now, what's nice of them is they're going to continue the program uh, for another 6 years, uh, at which point they're going to stop all funding completely. And from my understanding as well, they're no longer going to be accepting students this fall into the program. So if you're already in the program already here in Canada, the PhD MD program, you're fine. Just that if you are wishing to get in and to have it covered, you won't. Now, this is quite disturbing on many levels because it's hard enough to just go to medical school. Those of you who are doctors or are going through medical school, you know what I'm talking about. I have many friends of mine that went to medical school, and it's very, very busy. And many of them barely have enough time to even have a part-time job where they can even work at 8 hours if they're lucky. Um, but to do a PhD as well, with a lot of research hours on top of your MD, that's ridiculous. There's no time for a job. Uh, and I imagine the cost, because I know how much MDs roughly cost, in combination with a PhD, if you weren't getting this grant from the government, you probably have to work, as they say in the article, probably 2, 3 jobs. I can see that just to get by and have your living expenses and pay for tuition. I can I can totally see that. And what is going to happen, as we see here in the article, if only 3 to 4% of people are these highly trained clinical researchers, and we need more of them, we just won't get them. And eventually, this will impact how Canada is perceived on the world stage in terms of health and providing health care. I mean, it's bad enough we have wait times that are ridiculous in ERs, and it's bad enough that it takes months, sometimes years, on waiting lists just to get surgeries done. So there's a growing problem. One of the things that's interesting about Canada is a lot of our population's quite older. Um, so as people live longer and you have a aging cohort, a large aging cohort like the baby boomers, um, you need more specialists and more research going in and doctors to handle the volume. The other thing that's concerning, and the article kind of touched on a little bit, is that the research that's going to be cut, essentially, if you cut these people from doing research, they have no way of doing research, or you're less people doing the research that needs to get done, which eventually will lead to less innovation in healthcare and medicine overall, and will eventually lead to a reduction in Canada's capacity to provide world-renowned research. There was a time when Canada was a global contender in medical research. These are just some of the issues that are going on in terms of science. So I just want to give a video response um, to this. Hopefully you guys send me what you think. I think it's appalling, and I hope in the next election, which is coming up in October, that we will elect a government that understands the importance of having skilled scientists, especially medical scientists, to provide the best quality health care that our citizens need.